Just received the push rods from the customer. The customer is actually here today. Figured I'd work on his car a little bit. He also brought the piston rings. I'm going to set those up today as well and get that piston in place. But I'm going to do the valve train on this side and finish it up. The push rod length we ended up going with is a little bit shorter. It's a 7.550. See if I can get a good picture of that or not. There we go. 7.550 080 wall. Nice heavy 5/16 push rod. So I'll get going on starting these up. Okay, the new employee, aka customer, is working on finding the torque for these bolts for the rocker arms. They're an aftermarket bolt, so I'm making sure that they're, whether they're the same or not of stock. I just want to make sure that we get the right torque. Here is the piston rings for the piston. They would not sell him an individual set for just the one piston, unfortunately. So we got the whole set, so I'll be pulling these out, getting one from each box, and then I got to gap them first. So I'll look at my notes. I'm pretty sure I know what the gap is already, and then I'll set the gap, put them on the piston, and we'll get to putting the piston in after we torque these down, of course. Okay, I got all the rings sitting here. We have the top ring, it's a chromoly ring. There's a N on here. See the little N? That goes towards the top of the ring, or the top of the piston. So they are directional. There's a, let's see if I can show that as well. Flip it over here, there we go. I don't know if you can see, there's like a chamfer on this edge here. That's like for the twist when it's under pressure. So that's the top ring. This is the second ring. Get it to focus, there we go. You can see the N on there as well. And this is a Napier second ring is what it's called. It has, let's see if I can show you that again. There's a little cut right on the underneath of here. And it acts to scrape as it's going on its way down to make sure it scrapes the oil off, keep it from getting to the top ring. So that also has that directional thing going on. That's why the N there is on the opposite side of that deal. It's to scrape on its way down. Then we have the final, the oil ring. It is a 3-piece ring. There's 2 scraping rings and 1 oil soak or control ring, I guess. I don't know how you could describe that, but it basically holds oil to make sure there's always oil on that area of the piston, so that the second ring always has oil to scrape off. We are going to take and set these rings in the hole so that I can prep for gapping them. My fancy automatic camera is about to start picking up and hovering over the cylinder. And since this is an iron block, I can actually put my magnet on there. So I'm going to take these rings and I'm going to set them down in the hole, crooked, and then pull them up and bring them somewhat close to the top. And then I'm going to grab the piston and I'm going to put it just right over top of that to square it up so it's square in the hole. It's a little more difficult when it's in a engine compartment than when it's actually on a stand. And normally I do this with another ring on the piston just to stop it at a certain level, but I'm just trying to get it as even as I can. Yeah, that's about even. There. Okay, you see that little gap there? It's way too tight. That's because this is a file fit ring. So I have to file them down. Now that gap is almost touching. I have a little trick that I do with a marker. And I'll just go grab a marker quick. I know about the gap that I have to do, and so I take the marker and I mark until I see the approximate correct amount that I have to grind off. Come on. There we go. Okay, see that little black line? So now I'll take it, once I get a second here, I'm going to take it over to my actual tile table saw, believe it or not. I have a jig that I made to file rings on my, it's a diamond blade table saw for ceramic tiles. But it happens to work really good for filing rings, as funny as that is. So I will go ahead and get that started, and then I'll get back to you and show you what the rings look like. I'm live, yes! Alright, so unfortunately, being the genius that I am, instead of using this plate sitting here for lifting the car up because I need the plates to gap underneath the hoist, I use the plate that I usually use to guide myself on this thing. Now I'm going to be stuck hand filing them, but with the machine I'm going to get them as square as I can and hope like hell I don't screw it up. Luckily I got 7 more chances to screw it up, I guess. Okay, now I got plenty of material off of there. Those aren't near as fussy as these are. That's also a square cut as well. Let's hope I didn't go too far. Alright, now before I even attempt putting these in the bore, I have a diamond file here. I just take that and I clean up the sharp edges because there's always like a sharp rolled edge on the metal from grinding it. Alright, now when it comes to these guys, I actually have to make sure I'm really squared up. So when I'm doing this, I'm making sure that the file, the other end, comes approximately to the middle of this, and that'll keep it square when you lay it up against there. The chrome rings, they tend to chip in that makeshift ring file more so than create a rolled sharp edge. So all I do is I hit it real lightly on all corners. Now I'm going to wipe these down and then see what the gap is at. I'm not going to share the gap, but I have a certain gap that I like to set things at. I should have waited, but whatever. One more thing I got to grab. Yeah, look at that weird glitchy ass video. Gross. What's that?
It is going over Bluetooth. That's a lot of fucking video for Bluetooth.
Yeah. Alright, enough horsing around. Gotta get horsepowers in here.
Don't kill horses for horsepower.
No, don't kill horses for horsepower. Alright. So I'm firing up. Oh my gosh. It's getting late.
Record or no?
Yeah, I hit record. It's been recording.
Just checking.
Yep, it's recording all our bullshit.
Is it?
Yep.
While we're recording, you want to see this picture of this sweet convertible LeBaron? It's fucking mint.
Gross.
No, it is rust-free mint.
Yeah, but still, gross. It's a LeBaron.
Yeah, if you show everyone over here, look, it's gross.
Yeah, look, it's gross.
There's 2 dudes driving in it.
Alright, anyway. So I just sprayed a little WD-40 in the cylinder. That's all I put on the walls before I slide the piston in there. There's a little bit of oil, little engine oil on the surface of the inside of this ring compressor. I just smear it in there with my hands. I don't put a lot in there, just a real small amount. Maybe we can, anybody know Lucas can get a Lucas rep on here and have him sponsor me or something. But anyway, here's the assembly lube I use. I absolutely love this stuff. feels incredibly slimy, like something that should for assembly lube. There's assembly lube you can buy at a auto parts store, for instance. The first time I bought that, I almost didn't want to even try and use it. It feels like almost a gritty graphite, but I mean, it's obviously smooth. It's not actually gritty. It didn't feel right to me. So I used it when I was 17, my first car, but other than that, I haven't used it since. This stuff is just, it feels incredible. And looking at how these bearings are, I would say it's probably pretty good stuff. Alright, I gotta make sure F for front. Not that it's that hard to figure out with the valve reliefs, they go towards the top of the motor. The header was right in the way. Okay, so we got the piston sitting there now. But these style piston ring compressors are not the greatest, and you have to kind of tap them flat, and a lot of times you get the piston almost all the way in and the top ring just pops out and grabs, and whenever that happens, I just hate when that happens. It's kind of a pain in the butt to deal with. Okay, so back of the hammer, pull on the back of the hammer to push the piston in. Gotta pound all that horsepower into it. One in some, that's for sure. Oh, almost. Almost. Got the top ring not going in now.
You mean roll underneath there and push it up?
Nope. I'm trying to go down with it. If you work it just right, you can usually get it to go in there. See? Just gotta do it just right. And then it goes. And if you can push it down easy like that, you know you got it. So now we get to go to the underside of the car. He's looking for rod cap numbers so we can find the torque spec for the cap rod bolts. Okay, both rod bolts are torqued. Now to putting the windage tray, oil pan, and all that good stuff on. Okay, so we got the crank scraper out of the box. Crank scraper / windage tray. The scraper part of it is on the motor right now, just lightly bolted up, not torqued into place. I grabbed a feeler gauge. I got to make sure everything clears. You see I got the wrench on the crank. That's so I can turn it over and check clearances. On anything that's got a side clearance, I would like to have 20 thousandths of clearance. Anything that has a outside rotating clearance, if it's like a rod specifically, I want 40 thousandths. I'll probably end up doing 40 anyway, but we'll see. Depends on what it comes out of. Maybe I've already got that kind of clearance. Oh, I can't find a feeler gauge for the life of me. There we go. 20 and 18, 38. And I'll just make sure it's a little loose. Oh, that one needs some grindage. That needs some grindage. if you look at right here, you can see where I hit everything with a file. It's a spot right here where the bolt got close. Nothing actually hit, but it was closer than I wanted it to be. There's a couple other little areas. I flip this around. On the receiving end, there was side clearance issues on a couple of these that I had to just file some to get it to have a little more room. Other than that, it was actually really close and not too bad. I'm going to give you guys a picture here of what I'm working with. Okay, so I'm going to rotate this thing once and show you, like the rod for instance, what kind of clearance it's battling. See how close that gets? That's what we're trying to keep from it actually touching. And now as this thing rotates at a high RPM, it swings out and actually, you know, look at these two, swings out and actually gains or grows a certain amount. Not a lot, but enough. So you got to make sure you accommodate for that growth. So we got that gets close. And then the other part of the baffle that I got to bolt on now, those rods will actually dip down into these slots, and I got to make sure I clearance those as well, make sure that they're not getting close. That'll be my next step. These are the slots we're looking at.
And you want to go in next?
Yep. So just watch any one of these slots. Actually, this one will be first. It's about to come up to that. And they have tons of clearance on those, so nothing to worry about on them. I'll just go ahead and do some turning. So that won't be a problem. Flappers for oil control. And of course this guy's got to go up there, but I'll have to take it apart to put that up there. Got a second?
Do you need bolts?
Yeah.
Or hand?
Bolts.
Bolts.
Putting a filter on. When it comes to race car filter things, you know, I mean, it's nothing fancy. I mean, it is a Wix XP, so it's a better quality filter. I take and I always put a little oil in the filter before putting the filter on the vehicle, especially on something similar to this, like an LS, the filter actually sits up like this, so filling it full is not a big deal at all on these motors. You won't even spill a little. Now, I am using a better quality oil. I'm using this Valvoline VR1, or, well, not VR1, I guess. It's just their synthetic race oil. Theoretically, it has a ZDP additive in it, I think. Correct myself if I'm wrong here. High zinc phosphorus for extreme anti-wear, including flat tappets. Now, obviously, this don't have flat tappets, but any race engine that is not that has push rods, for instance, it's not bad to have a little zinc in there. The push rod tips are metal on metal contact where it meets the rocker, and I've seen a lot of LS, LQ, LM7, whatever, all the LS series based engines. The aluminum rocker and the push rod tip will sometimes gall, I guess you could call it, but it's basically creates a scratch and the push rod will stop rotating. It'll sit there and scratch and destroy the push rod tip and wreck the rocker. So having zinc in there, I think, will help prevent that. I have no actual proof of it, but none of the motors I've done have had that happen. All the factory stuff, or a lot of the factory stuff I've seen has had that happen, but that could be lack of maintenance. So again, I have no proof, it's just a theory that I've kind of come up with over the course of the years I've been working on cars. Another noteworthy, if you don't already know this, always put oil on the filter O-ring. Not sure if you noticed that. The car actually shifted a little bit. So I put too much weight of the car on this spring. It is a heavier spring, so it is going to be easier to accidentally make that mistake. The car actually shifted a little bit. Luckily, you pay really close attention when you do it. The car won't come off the hoist. You just gotta stop immediately if you see that. Notice I went right back up. That was just to make sure I got a little bit of tension on the suspension. It won't go anywhere now, but what I have to do is I have to tighten down these lower ball joint nuts. Put them on, tighten them down. Then I gotta go to the other side, do the same exact thing. And then I'll be able to finish attaching the rest of the suspension. Maybe throw the wheels on, lower the car, and continue with the top half of the motor. Okay, so I'm about to lower it down a little bit. I can't put the wheels on yet. I have to attach the shocks first. In order to attach the shocks, I have to remove that strap that I put in to hold the motor up, and then I have to put the vehicle so that the back lands on that last jack stand, and then the control arms are going to land on those little jack stands that I have there. And the reason for that is because if I were to just put the little jack stands on here, the little ones would actually make the front come off of the hoist, and the back would just teeter because of the position of the hoist on the deal. So if I put one in the back of the car, it'll counteract it. It's going to take me a little bit of time to finagle it, but once it's done, I'm able to collapse the suspension enough that I can put those shocks on in a much easier way than if I weren't to do that. In fact, I might not even be able to get it if I don't collapse the suspension at all. Sometimes they'll sit too low and the shocks are what actually holds it in the up position. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, I took the time to put the shocks on, the wheels on. I torqued one in front of you just to show you that they do get torqued. The other one I did on the ground. It's much easier to just snug them up lightly, and I say that emphasized lightly with an impact gun. Then you lower the car to the ground so the wheels just touch, or the tires just touch the ground, and have enough friction that you're not going to be able to turn them. Then I take the impact gun, Jesus, the torque wrench, and finish torquing it down. These wheels are getting to 100 foot-pounds of torque, so that's what they're set at. I tighten down the motor mounts. I tighten down pretty much everything suspension-wise, I think. I'm going to have to double-check all of it when I get an opportunity, of course. But at this point, I'm pretty sure I got everything torqued down. The next step is to take care of the cylinder head and get it attached, get the header on, and move forward with all that stuff. Then I can go forward with power steering pump, on and on and on, and get this car assembled. So I will start that now, and we'll get back to you as soon as I get all that done to yak a little bit more, I guess. Let's see here, if I can get everything out of my way. This power steering hose is going to give me some trouble. There's a power steering hose down here. I gotta somehow keep it from interfering with everything. But I'll get that taken care of. Little head gasket 101 here before I set it in place. These gaskets are directional, not up and down as much as front to back. Now you see right here it says front. The reason that says front is for the front of the cylinder, the engine, of course, but look at the size of these holes here. These are just little holes. Now these guys are the head bolt holes, so those are going to be big. But notice how they're small, 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 and then in the very back here we have two large holes. That's for coolant flow direction. So if you did not pay attention to that, you would end up with a severe overheating concern that would not ever be solved until you flip this the correct direction. The reason they do that is so that the coolant will flow through the water jacket to the back of the block, then into the cylinder head and across. That way you get a full cross flow effect. If that was not done, it would just cool down the first cylinder in the front if it was done incorrectly. So keep that in mind whenever you're doing these jobs, or if you plan on ever doing these jobs. This is the stuff the customer likes to recommend or likes to use, and I actually recommend this oil. It's a little bit expensive, and it's probably not the best for if you're going to be changing your oil constantly. I personally don't run it only because I like to change my oil. I like to see what's going on. He drives a lot of miles. He doesn't need to check it so often. I don't know. He has a lot more faith in things than I do. But regardless, it says high zinc formula. It's a 1040, so it's a little heavier than the standard 530 that you would run on a normal car. We got a little extra clearance in this motor for bearing clearance, so 1040 is what he needs to get the adequate oil pressure. This is actually a very good oil to use. I'm going to put it in before I put the valve cover in, or at least a good amount of it, because it's a lot easier to put in this giant hole versus the little hole on the other side. So I'm just going to do it quick while I'm here. Now you can notice I'm pouring it over the valve train because it doesn't hurt to have a little extra lubrication on there. And now I made a mess. Great. I better get that quick before it gets too big of a mess. Luckily there's not much place for it to go. I didn't get any in the intake. It got close, but I kept it out. Got a little drip on the other side too. Way to go, huh? Genius. Normally it's easier to pour in here. I'll retake my comment back. Not when you're trying to pour it over the valve train. Then you get a pretty good risk of spillage. Okay, now that I got it over the whole valve train, now it's to the easy part. There's a drain right over here on the cylinder head. And you just pour slow. In fact, I think I'm going to move to this one because that one's filling up too fast. There we go, now it's going quick. Okay, got 5 quarts in. This is a 6-quart system. So I got 5 quarts, and what I put in the filter of that other Valvoline stuff. I could have used his, like, it doesn't matter. It's just a little touch up to fill the oil filter so it doesn't dry start. It starts with some oil in it. It's always a good practice to fill that filter up. Okay, so before I go any further, I want to show you this quick. This is the oil pressure sender. I did a oil pressure sender on a car that I just recently had here. I actually took video and put a video up on it. The only problem is, during that video I tried to record, it was outside. It was hot outside. The phone overheated and it shut the video off. So, fail on that behalf. Now, since this motor is essentially the same, I mean, LS3, LS7, they're extremely similar. I'm showing you this now. It has the same exact valley cover, same exact switch or sensor, same port. Everything there is the same. Even the square port cylinder heads are very similar, though they're different. The LS7 has bigger ports. It's a higher flow head. It's got a little bit different intake design, but they're really, really close. I mean, if you don't look at them side by side, you almost can't tell them apart. So I want to go over a couple things quick while I'm here. This little hose here, normally it's black. If it was stock, it'd be black. But you can see the stock hose back there. This is for the exhaust. There's a switch in these cars to turn the exhaust on and off. This guy actually uses it still. He has an aftermarket version of that exhaust, and it's quite a nice piece, I must say. But he's eliminating this part of it. So he still has a vacuum switch, but he's also got a vacuum pump, and he put a vacuum pump in the back so he could take this out and not have the issue of the lack of intake vacuum because this is a performance motor. So he was having a lot of trouble before getting the valves to fully shut, so it'd be loud at idle, and then as soon as he got moving where he had a little bit of vacuum, it'd be quiet. That was kind of annoying for him, so he's very picky that way, which is cool. So I gotta tie this up. I'm just gonna block the hole and then tuck it in the back, and then I'm gonna put the intake back on, and you'll be able to see the process of putting the intake on. And if you watched the other video and you were curious on that, now you'll get a chance to see it. It's almost the same. Like I said, it's not very different from an LS7 to an LS3. So. There's that hose. I got a little bolt on the end of it and then zip tied out of the way. That fuel line sitting there I'm going to have to pull up yet, but I'll pull that up. And then there is a vacuum line. Let's see here if I can find it. Should be, oh, it's buried down here. There we go. See that vacuum line there? That also goes on the back of the intake. I'll go show you the intake quick. You won't be able to see that on video from the view you're at, so I'm just going to show you now. Okay, so this is for that big hose. This is for the little hose. I'm going to have to block this guy off too, so I got to go get a plug for that, and then I can start addressing putting the intake back on. Okay, so before I put the intake in, and knowing the simple thought that this thing had a serious valve train concern, right? So I'm trying to find a spot for this camera. Bear with me here. So knowing that this thing had a little bit of a valve train issue, right? I thought I better double check the intake, make sure everything's clear in there. So I took all the bolts out and then gave it a little shake, right? The reason I did that is one of the other cars that I had here recently, it had a broken off valve, just a piece of it, which I explained in a previous video. And that broken off valve literally went into the intake. How the odds are that it landed in that intake was crazy to me, but I have confirmed that the odds are pretty good of things ending up in the intake. Here's your, hear that? That's not right. Let's see what's in there. Now the problem is, how am I going to get this stuff out of here? I suppose I can go through the throttle. There we go. Oh yeah, this is not good. There it is. So I'm going to be taking that throttle blade off of there. But I was wondering where the rest of these pieces were. I'll bring these up to you so you can take a peek. This is the valve seat itself. Interesting little sliver of material here. So we'll grab the camera, take a look. So here is the remainder of valve seat that had to come out yet. I'm going to show you something else while I'm here. Sorry about the goofy camera thing going on here, but it is what it is. Alright, let's see if I can see this. Move this over. More light on it. Trying to get it to... There, you see the little piece? That's not moving. All that shaking and it didn't move. So with all that shaking and it not moving, that tells me that the oil that is in the intake, which is natural, all engines with a little oil in the intake, but that oil that's in the intake is adhering to the little pieces, and I don't want to send those through the rest of the motor. So I'm going to have to either do some crazy extensive cleaning or have this guy get another intake. I'll look into that and get back to you on that part. Alright, so while the customer gets his notification of this whole scenario and waiting for him to make a decision on what he wants to do, I am going to start doing the pulleys, the power steering and alternator part of the system, so that we can move on with this whole project. No reason to stop when I got plenty to do. So this guy has to go up over here, you know. So I gotta put that down there. I gotta get the power steering pump in place first, I think, though. And you'll just watch my speedy version of installing this system. Okay, so the customer has chosen to reuse the manifold, which is not a big deal. I just gotta hit them just a little bit for the cleaning time. It'll still be cheaper than a manifold. The manifold's like 200 bucks, give or take. I guess I didn't look it up, but I know it's at least a couple $100. So what I have right now is, this is my parts washer. I took all the parts washing fluid and just filled up these ports. It's not filled in there, but this has like it's like a dished kind of a thing. So there's an area that's holding for those tubes that I can't see anything in. I already sat there and moved all the fluid around as much as I could to get it as wet as I could with the parts solvent. The hope here is that I can get the oil film off the inside of that intake enough so that I can blow the intake out as good as absolute possible, maybe with a vacuum cleaner shoved in there as well, and get it to get all those little chunks of metal out of there. I should be able to get enough out of there that it won't cause any kind of problem. If there's anything left, it'll be small dust specks, which will just, if they do come loose, they'll just go right through the intake and right out the exhaust valve. They won't even hesitate. They won't stop. So that's where he sits with that, and I will continue my day after I eat some lunch. Alright, I need to make you guys a mount so I can put you on the right spot for video footage, because it's about time I do something better. I found this fancy aluminum box here, so we'll put that in place for making you a mount. Then we will... Wow! That was nice. Alright, now we have to mount that mount. It's in. Let's get you guys up there where you can actually see from a good view. Might have to tweak it a little bit. Minor detail here. There, how's that? You can see the entire engine bay. That should work. Alright, so I'm going to do a little fuel modification to this thing. Let's see here. Yeah, that should fit a little bit better. So beforehand, with this fitting, it's a 90-degree. It was actually pulling the fuel rail back a little bit because it had no choice. I mean, it was stressing against the back of the intake manifold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and put this little 45 in there instead of the 90 to give it a little bit easier way to get to that thing. So that's what I'm going to put on there for now. Well, that was fun. That was a lot of work. But the first part of this video is from Friday night into Saturday morning. I did not have time over Father's Day weekend to edit everything, but I did get a lot of good video and a couple of funny little moments that night the customer was here. I don't know if you'll get a chance to see those or not, but I'll do my best to see what I captured. I'm pretty sure I got some good stuff. See, I got just a little bit left before the car is ready to run. Hopefully I'll finish it up, get it running tomorrow morning, and then be bringing you some more video, and we'll continue on with the other parts of the project with the car. Otherwise, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell if you want to see these things when they come up. I'm going to try and provide video at least every other day, if not every day, at least for quite a while, to make sure that you have plenty of content to look through. And if you have anything you'd like to see in particular, any specific information that you would like to know about a particular vehicle, I'll be sure that if I run into that vehicle or that circumstance, or if maybe I can just describe it, I can give you that info as you need. Leave me a comment and I'll see what I can provide. Thank you for watching once again. If you made it this far, obviously you watched the video. Thank you.